My name is Astor. The 2025 Snow White remake is cheeks. The soundtrack, contextually, is also cheeks. You clicked on this video to hear me bash the song for being, you guessed it, cheeks. But you'll watch a dozen videos arguing that point, and I want to take a different angle. It might take my views, but I gotta speak my truth, you know? Waiting on a Wish is the I Want song of the movie. The original Snow White didn't have a modern-style I Want song since it came out in 1937. It had songs like I'm Wishing and Someday My Prince Will Come, which at face value are about the protagonist wanting something, but don't fit the same place in the narrative as what we'd now classify as an I Want song. For the, and I say this in heavy quotes, updated rendition we got in 2025, these songs have apparently been nixed. Instead, famed songwriting duo Benj Pasek and Justin Paul were hired to create some new, updated songs for Snow White. They're responsible for hits like La La Land and Dear Evan Hansen, musicals which saw wide crossover appeal to the general audience. Put a pin in that. As part of the update, Snow White was given a modern Broadway-style I Want song. This begs the question, is this appropriate for the subject matter? No, not really. The original Snow White took inspiration from opera and the popular music of the time. The concept of F-sharp fiving your heart out after a dramatic swell wasn't really a thing quite yet. Conversely, softly singing into a microphone was the popular style in the 30s. Condenser mics were still a marvel. So, if you're trying to capture the spirit of 1937 Snow White, adding modern Broadway-style songs means you're screwing up pretty majestically at the conceptual stage. But it got me thinking, what if that's okay? Again, I'm not defending this movie, but let's strip it down to the basics. A reinterpretation of Snow White that involves changing its musical style to something modern audiences are more familiar with. And I don't mean kids, I mean everyone born after 1960. Could it work? I've criticized many Disney remake songs on this channel. A common thread between those criticisms is that the remake songs were trying to be copies of the originals, but missed crucial details. I think in a couple of them I said that a total reinterpretation would have been more welcome. In fact, it would justify the remakes a lot more. Let's take a step back and imagine a world where this is the case. If we were dealing with a reinterpretation of Snow White that was actually decent, is Waiting on a Wish a good song? Before we get started, I said this in my last video, and I'll say it here again. This is not the place to argue about Rachel Zegler's personality. Do that in your own time. Yeah, she's annoying, but this isn't about that. Don't argue about Gal Gadot either. I'm tired. We start off with soft, low strings underneath a repeating pluck of what may be a harp. There's a neat bit of production here with how the plucks alternate between left and right panning. You'll notice it with headphones. Though simple, it's nice and subtle. It's steady and keeps things moving. It kind of reminds me of dripping water and passing time.
Little girl at a lonely well with the same little tale to tell.
Personal thing, I always like when a key adjective is repeated 2 lines in a row. I think it's rhythmic and pushes the theme up front.
Feeling trapped by the walls that hold her.
Good emphasis there on trapped. It's a harsh word with a closed feeling because of the rough TR beginning and then the hard stop of its sound. This kind of whisper and hold serves it well. I can't say the same about the next line.
Feeling stuck in the story they've told her.
I'm slightly torn here since stuck and story are a nice alliteration, but I usually weigh word connotation over alliteration and most other things. Not only is this line repetitive to the last, but stuck doesn't work as well as it should. My ears expected something of a rhyme at its position, even if slanted, because of the type of emphasis put on trapped. Like, come on, wrapped is right there.
Another day where she fades away, never daring to disobey.
This is a grammar thing, but the first part of that couplet sticks out to me because fades away usually has a sense of completeness to it. By that I mean, if you say something fades away, it generally means it's going to be mostly or completely gone. You can't do that every day unless you're starting each day back at the beginning. The more proper way to say something is gradually losing vibrance is that it's fading away every day. If it were me, I'd break meter for that. Another day where she's fading away.
So she's dreaming all alone, sharing secrets with a stone.
First, I want to point out the inflection on secrets. I like how there's a kind of nervous laugh behind it. It adds the emotional detail of a isn't that absurd feeling without actually needing to say it. Overall, this is a fine first verse. It's not the most exciting in terms of structure or language, but it's descriptive and gets the job done. It sets up the narrative. The use of third person is an interesting choice since it creates a separation between the narrator and the topic. It frames it like a fairy tale she's telling herself. The next part of the song switches to first person.
Father told me long ago I braved a bitter storm of snow.
Instrumentally, we get the addition of a softly strummed guitar, and the single plucks drop out.
Sharing secrets with a stone.
This is a cool transition. Since the harp blends into the guitar, it doesn't feel abrupt. I really don't think it sounds bad. It pairs well with the melody and the sonic quality of the words. As for the rest of the lyrics in this pre-chorus,
Storm of snow,
Connected with the verse, the switch from third to first person grounds the narrator back in reality and provides contrast between the person she sees now and the person she's been told she is, metaphorically speaking. The way the low strings fade out, then come back to the lighter sounding chorus provides dynamic, a dip, then a rise to reveal a higher set of instruments.
Again, I'm waiting on a wish.
This is another way to transition between sound palettes in a way that isn't jarring. I'll be blunt, I mention these things because a lot of people give Pasek and Paul criticism for sounding too pop, but this sounds good, at least to me.
I'm waiting on a wish beneath 1,000 treetops.
The finger-picked guitar taking the lead, underscored by the harp arpeggios and a hold of high strings, sounds good. Is it breaking new ground? No, it's not, but there's a reason Dear Evan Hansen and La La Land resonated with the general public. Waiting on a Wish is a pretty strong, if generic, hook. It's snappy and memorable. The word wish is as effective as ever with its shooting star sound and association with faith, hope, and wistfulness. It brings me to a point I've wanted to discuss for a long time on this channel. Can things simply sound good and work? And when I say sound, I do mean the literal form of the verb. When broken down purely into its sonic qualities and connotations, do our ears and brain like this?
Beneath 1,000 treetops, and as the silver sky stops.
Now, there's an issue with the meter, as treetops has the emphasis on tree and therefore clashes with sky stops. That's worth acknowledging. Beneath 1,000 treetops, though, is great imagery. I've always liked the poetic qualities of the word thousand because of its grandness, and treetops is rhythmic. And as the silver sky stops, read normally, makes you double take. Face value, what does that mean? Silver sky refers to clouds, I assume, so is she saying the clouds have stopped moving? Has time stopped? Maybe. Maybe this means in this moment. In classical musical theater rules, a line this abstract is usually frowned upon. You want to be able to capture what's being said at first listen. But what if that was still the case? Sidebar, but I promise this is relevant. I happened across a live version of some Coldplay songs the other day. The live recording was done at a concert in Argentina. Though Buenos Aires has a decent number of English speakers, it's a fair assumption that a good portion of the crowd isn't fluent. But then, listen to this.
Come up to meet you, tell you I'm sorry.
And if you want to argue this is edited, here's footage from Colombia. You know why this happens? It's not because everyone in that crowd painstakingly rehearsed these songs. It's because, in my opinion, one aspect of Coldplay's mass appeal comes from just how distinct and fitting these words sound with the music. I've listened to Milo Xyloto, the album with Paradise on it, like 20 times, and it lives in a strange place in my mind. On paper, these lyrics make no sense. But it's like, I get it. Look at the song Major Minus. The main hook is, they got one eye watching you and one on what you do. This line appears before the second instrumental break. That's a Peter Pan reference. The crocodile swallowed a clock, it follows around Captain Hook, the song's about being watched, the analogy is there. Takes a second to get that one. And you know what? It totally works. Listen to how good this sounds. It's because purely on a sonic level, I immediately get it. The hard consonants and hushed delivery with the ticking in the background immediately communicated what it needed to. If I didn't speak a word of English, I would still understand it. Let's listen to that Pasek and Paul line again.
Beneath 1,000 treetops, and as the silver sky stops.
I get it. I understand what they're saying. In this moment, I am making a wish. And I know this is a pop technique. I know it breaks rules. But once again, let's step back. Does this communicate what it needs to as soon as I hear it? Yes. Compare it to this wish.
And throw caution to every warning sign.
This does not work. It doesn't sound good, and it is actual nonsense. You can't extrapolate imagery or metaphor out of it, and it is outright distracting. The lines I've discussed for Waiting on a Wish, to me, are not the same. The sheer sound of the chosen words combined with the chosen instrumentals lets me hold on to them. Thousand, treetops, silver. Abstract feelings and images. Words are an instrument too. Bluntly stating everything works functionally, but your song will lack the lyricism that keeps people coming back.
Holding out for someday, hoping somehow, someway.
The subtle emotional beats in Ziegler's performance are there.
I'll become my father's daughter.
That ties back to the pre-chorus. We love continuity. There's a switch up after this, the monosyllabic lyrics creating a rhythm.
I close my eyes and see the girl I'm meant to be.
The strings begin to swell, and I'm a fan of these woodwinds that layer over them. I will say that the next line has an awkward delivery because of its meter.
Wondering, will she appear? Or will I be forever here?
It sounds like Ziegler didn't quite know where to place those syllables, but I do like how the strings fade out to leave just the guitar, and then this guitar is stopped by a little twinkling cue. Again, nothing new, but little details like that are just nice. The guitar jumps back up an octave to cover the high end of the mix. The low end fills out more before the second verse.
Little girl by a wildwood, how she tries to be someone good.
This percussion does feel out of place. It's too royal. Maybe it was done to add a real bass, and I say that in the mixing sense, not the instrument sense. It's being used to give the song more movement, but I think the guitar is taking care of that. This wasn't necessary. You can make the argument that this sounds way too adventurous for the lyrics, which are more somber.
But in the shadow, the kingdom's caught in. Somehow fairness is long forgotten.
Caught in and forgotten, pretty good rhyme, I must say. Those rising chords do feel great too, and the next lyrics have that sense of frustration and grand question to them.
So will she rise or bow her head? Will she lead or just be led?
Yes, I know this isn't at all like Snow White's original characterization, but again, alternate timeline where that's the point and also the movie isn't awful. If the goal was to characterize Snow White as an active and bold protagonist, this is fine. We're still continuing the thread from the beginning. Snow White wants to be the person her father believes she can be. There is a through line.
Is she the girl she always said she'd be?
I'm a fan of pivotal questions at the end of a pre-chorus. If the chorus is the answer or thesis of the song, ending the build-up with a suitable question helps everything feel connected and exciting. I think it could be especially potent when it's not rhymed with anything, because that's like open-ended, like a question is. Oh, this actually does rhyme though, it's just using a tail syllable, like the rhyme is there, but the line continues afterwards. The pounding drums are present in the second chorus. I think they blend in better this time though with the fuller instrumentation, although they still feel out of place considering the general aesthetic of the song.
Holding out for someday, hoping somehow
I do have to admit, this post-chorus sounds pretty with the wider orchestra. It's so hopeful.
I can see the girl I'm meant to be.
Yeah, it's cliche, but cliches can work. If it fits the tone of the lyrics, then use it. You don't have to be experimental. Just be inspired. That's the big difference. What I said about the Spellbound song is that it wasn't inspired, so these cliches feel more hollow, like they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have any inspiration to do anything different. Here, it feels like the choices were made because it would work best with the song, or at least decently with the song. I'm sure that Pasek and Paul weren't especially inspired either, but they're working with something here. The transition to the bridge is kind of jarring, though. Maybe it's because of how the rhythm changes to something more straightforward with repeating steady hits.
Waiting on a wish. They say all you have to do.
I wonder if it's kind of a callback to the plucks from the first verse, but it's not really working. This bridge has gotten quite a bit of flack. The lyrics are passé, and I almost rolled my eyes at this couplet.
Say all you have to do to make your wish come true.
Like, come on, there had to be a more creative way to say that. And the most contentious line in the song is arguably the next one.
Is let it go, echo, echo, echo.
I think people are mad because she repeats echo as opposed to letting the production do it with some reverb and delay. It could be they just dislike the repetition in general. Now, I do think as a whole sentence, it falls into the category of, I get it. To make your wish come true, you have to will it to happen. It's just not the most lyrical way to say it. I don't think the repetition is inherently wrong, though. It adds a nice flourish of rhythm, and the choice of repeated word is about as fitting as you can get. It's what the melody called for. Holding this note or letting vocal effects take it would hurt the momentum, and momentum is crucial in melody. Speaking of momentum, though, watch it come to a screeching halt.
But I'm still waiting.
Going from grand to reserve isn't uncommon. However, a held note or just a couple more bars of instrumental would have made a significant difference in how sudden that switch is. Now, there's a bit of confusion here regarding releases. The version on YouTube stops after this, but the soundtrack version continues to an instrumental break in a third soft chorus. I'm going to guess this is in the movie proper, so I have to look at it. The third chorus is the coming down to earth part of the narrative.
On a whisper to the water, waiting on a wish.
There's the big hope, then the realization that she's not quite there yet. There's a reason we have the phrase easier said than done. The use of a small swell here is effective.
Learn to be my father's daughter.
It's reflecting the hope that's still there even after coming back to reality. The song ends somberly, and the final line and hook of I wake up and it's me again, waiting on a wish is an effective turn on the key line of the song.
Waiting on a wish.
Waiting on a Wish isn't a perfect song. It's quite flawed. I mean, you just saw that my only way of defending it was to remove the context around it and try to judge it as a standalone piece. Not my finest moment, but it brings me to an important point I've been wanting to make. In the past few months, I've been thinking a lot about what we expect in a musical theater song. We have these lists of rules about rhyme, structure, and storytelling. When something deviates from the template, especially in a way that's reminiscent of contemporary popular music, we try and slap them back into the mold. Pasek and Paul have been criticized for this before, and I definitely have my issues with Dear Evan Hansen, but there's a reason their productions have resonated with people. The reality is that if everything is expected to keep within the boundaries, the medium will stagnate, continue to alienate the general audience. Think about the most popular musics in the past decade. Hamilton, Dear Evan Hansen, Six, Hadestown. If you want to go back a little bit, Wicked is outright immortal at this point. All of these have broken the traditional mold in some way. Yes, even Wicked. Its orchestration takes a lot of contemporary cues. There's this idea floating around in the online musical space that pop music is vapid, shallow, easy to write, and templated. Chappell Roan is usually pointed to as an exception, but that's just not true. Chappell is fantastic, but her popularity is a product of the current pop environment. It's not there in spite of it. I'd argue pop is as theatrical as it's ever been, combining storytelling with a variety of production and performance styles. Sabrina Carpenter's breakthrough was found in her exuberant humor. Billie Eilish can switch between heartfelt love songs and experimental dark ones. Olivia Rodrigo between angry pop and confessional ballads. Doechii floored everyone at the Grammys with her theatricality. Ariana Grande wrote a concept album last year. People are connecting with these songs. Wicked's soundtrack charted. Avoiding contemporary music techniques like the plague isn't helping anyone. A musical theater number can use them and work. Yes, the old guard wouldn't have used them, but that's okay. We can take what we've learned from them and put our own spin on it. That's how art progresses. We can't just be worse versions of those who came before us. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out the rest of my channel for more breakdowns on the intersection of words and music. Have a wonderful day.